What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like button. We're here back on Fresh Out for some more military tales. You know how we getting down. We supporting the military, getting a voice out here, and letting them come on the show because we like to keep you guys entertained with new content. And I have here with me my man, Ty. Man, tell the people, man, a little bit about what it was like for you in the Navy, doing your thing, man, because I know there's some crazy stories. And coincidentally, he knows Bernard Hubble. So he was just on the show, and man, we connected, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show now.
Yeah, Bernard, I served with Bernard in Point Magoo. That was my last duty station. I was at two duty stations before that, but then I was in aviation, so every time I got sent away to school, I would be there for like 3 or 4 months. So I experienced a lot of different other areas of the United States as well. But when I first got in, I just turned 21. And then I went to boot camp, and after that, I spent 6 months, about 6 to 8 months in Memphis. That's where the training, the A school was. And then after that, I got stationed out in Alameda, and the Bay is wild, man.
Yeah, I know about the Bay Area, man.
There's so many stories.
So Alameda, for people who don't know, is in Oakland, by Oakland.
Yeah, it's a little island just off of Oakland. It's like if you're going to Jack London Square, you make this left, and then you go through. And it took me about 6 months before I realized I was going through a tunnel underwater. You come up on the other side, and that's Alameda Island. Yeah. The base isn't there anymore, but it was a Naval Air Station and a Navy base. So we had like 3 different carriers. There was the Carl Vinson, the Abraham Lincoln, and there was a bunch of supply tenders. What
was it like back then? What year was that back then?
I was there from 93 to 99. Or excuse me, 93 to 95.
Okay, because I was on Treasure Island from like 82 or 81 or 80 to 88. And then we used to go to Alameda a lot. So I'm familiar with Alameda. We used to go shopping over there and skateboarding over there and all that stuff. So yeah, Alameda, man, I remember that area well.
Yeah. I didn't spend, one of the things that was different for me is I had a car when I joined the Navy. So I was able to I would leave the base. No matter where I got stationed, I would always once I could get out of uniform and could get off the base, I would just go explore. And Alameda wasn't that big. All the action was in Oakland. So I had Oakland, San Francisco, down to San Jose, up in Vallejo. I was all over.
Yeah. They used to have that club over there by Marine World, across the street. You remember that club over there by the Hilton? I think there was a club they used to have in one of the hotels on there in the lounge area. They used to have a club on the weekends. I remember I used to be popping out there in Vallejo.
I don't remember that club. Most of the clubs that I went to were in San Jose, which I don't even remember the name now because it's so long ago. And in Oakland, there was one called, I think, Jeffries or something like that. It was like a 30-plus club.
Yeah, I heard Jeffries.
And there was this other one called the Caribbean.
Okay.
That's where I would go a lot. It was like a reggae Jamaican club.
So we were talking earlier, and you were saying about the female you knocked in downtown Oakland, man.
Oh, you want that story? Okay. Yeah, there's that's one story where I was just driving. It was like a Saturday, and I'm driving downtown Oakland. You know how it is back then. You see something, you pull over and get out, talk to her.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to her, and she says, I said a couple of things, and then she says, well, I am married, but she writes her number down. She's like, here, you can still call me. She said, don't call me until Wednesday because my husband's ship pulls out on Tuesday. I am not bragging about this. That was a long time ago. But so I called, and things happened. I ended up going over, and we hooked up about 2 or 3 times. She had like 3 or 4 kids with this guy that married her when they were in high school.
Wow.
So they had like maybe 1 or 2, and then he joined the Navy with her, got married, and now she's messing around with me. And after it was either the 3rd or the 4th time that I hooked up with her, she starts talking about us being together and leaving her husband for me. I'm like, nah, we can't do that.
So you would go over there, and where would the kids be at?
They were in the house. I mean, I remember one time she's making spaghetti, and for the kids, she's making food for the kids. She's like, "You want a plate?" And in my head, I'm like, nah, because to me that's like taking food out of the kid's mouth. So I'm like, no, I'm okay. She made them food, and then at a certain point, they went to play in their room or whatever, and we slid off in her room. Things happen.
So she just said Uncle Ty?
She didn't even, now I think about it, she didn't even say who I was. She
You just
like,
popped in there?
Yeah, she didn't even introduce me or anything. It was just.
Oh, shit, that's crazy.
So that kind of probably tells you I wasn't the only guy, and that's how it is back there, man. Because, or back then, in the military period, because I can't tell you how many times. I remember one time I'm in the barracks and I'm looking out the window and I went out to my car. Well, you always see girls walking around.
Yeah.
Some of them are military and civilian clothes. Some of them are civilians that are with another guy there. And I just remember I seen this girl like once or twice just walking because my squadron was downstairs and there was another, I won't say who they were, but they were upstairs.
Yeah.
They had the whole upstairs of that barracks. And so I'm walking back from my car to the barracks and I look up because you don't usually see females, you usually see guys in a window.
Yeah.
So I look up and I see this girl and I can kind of read lips. And can we curse?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I can kind of read lips and I see her saying, he's fucking fine. He's fine. So I'm like, who's this? So I go in my barracks and then I came back out the door for something and I see her walking down the hallway. She came looking for me. Boyfriend's upstairs.
Oh, shit.
I didn't even know that. So we exchanged numbers. She lived like almost in Vallejo. There was like, if you remember how you're going and then you're driving and you hit this area, I forget what it was called, and then you go across the water and now you're in Vallejo.
Okay.
She was almost in Vallejo. And so we hooked up a couple of times. And I remember one time, because back then, the car that I had, that's what we were known by. What else did you have?
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
So I'm there with her, but she had one or two roommates. Well, her boyfriend stayed upstairs and his roommate was her roommate's boyfriend. So the roommate came over to see her. He sees my car. He swears I'm there for her. She's like, nah, he's there for so-and-so.
Oh, wow.
Well, so-and-so's boyfriend, he knows them too. So eventually it all hit the fan to where
found that because he told the partner, like, man, he over there busting cheeks.
Yeah, because I was temporary duty from my squadron to supply. And while I'm in supply, I'm working with this one guy. I'm not knowing if I should leave names out. Well, this all happened. His name was Derek. And Derek's roommate, I remember his name now. His name was Max. And so maybe like 2 months I'm there, and I find out that Derek's roommate is Max. Then when I was over, I used to give Derek a ride home because he had a car, and he stayed off base. I was still on base. And so one day, I don't remember exactly how, but I'm there, and Max comes in with old girl. And
girl that you're plugging?
Yeah. And I was just like, there's many times where I was that other guy that they didn't know about, but the girl, so I'm there playing Madden.
Play it off.
Yeah, I'm there. We would always play Madden, me and Derek. So there's many times I would come over and play Madden. Sometimes she would be there, sometimes she wouldn't. And it's like, Max don't know what we doing, and he's in love with this chick. Like, hey, it is what it is. So eventually, it all hit the fan. Derek tells me that Max wants to fight me, and I'm like, if that's what he want to do, that's what he want to do.
Yeah.
So I guess that made him not want to fight me no more. So we ended up having a talk. It was like, man, we had a talk, and I told him I wouldn't mess with her no more. She asked me to meet her. We met at a mall, and she's telling me that she wants to be with me. And I'm like, that dude. At this time, I was
all the drama of this.
There's so many. I got so many stories like this, but
she's still trying to get with you, even though Max trying to get with her.
Max is ready to marry this girl.
Wow.
He's ready to give her a ring or whatever.
She's tossing it up.
Yeah, and she's like, she wants me. So it's like, I told her, you know what, this dude loves you. And we were getting ready to ship out too. We were getting ready to do a home port change to to Texas.
Okay.
And so I'm telling her, just go be with him. He loves you. You guys have a relationship. I'm trying to build that up so she'll just go that direction. And she was sad about it, but eventually she went on ahead and she didn't call me no more. Because I'm a man of my word. If I told the dude, I wouldn't talk to her no more. So,
man, it sounds like like, shoot, you were getting as much tail as guys in college dorms, man. You was busting them down up in there.
College too, because there was times where I would like we'd be out and like I was Jack London Square, and I remember I met this girl that went to Stanford University. So there's a couple times where I went over to Stanford and I'm hanging out with her. She would come over and hang out with me. But yeah,
Oh yeah, because you got Berkeley over there too.
Yeah, I don't think I messed with anybody from Berkeley, but Stanford, and then just a lot of locals, military girls. I forgot about this one time because there was a Little Caesars and then a Blockbuster right next to it. So a lot of times we would go to Little Caesars, order pizza. While you're waiting for your pizza, you go to Blockbuster, or both. You know, just got time. You want to watch a movie, eat something. So Blockbuster, there was a couple little nice little females in there, and one of them I pushed up on her. Turns out she's married, but she wants to kick it with me. And her husband, he was upstairs. I mean,
oh wow,
yeah, because he was in that squadron that was upstairs from us. So this was safe because they're not together anymore.
Yeah.
They eventually, once I got to Point Magoo, I went to some club and I saw that girl, and I'm not gonna say her name, but I saw her at that club, and it's like, what's going on? How you doing? And I had slowed down once I got to Point Magoo, slowed down a lot, but I talked to her and she had told me that they had got a divorce. But I remember before I left Alameda, the day that I'm leaving, she wanted to hook up with me, so she got a hotel room. I met her in the hotel room, and we did what we did, and then I left.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hey man, I'm not mad at you, man. I mean, shoot, you know, a lot of guys, you know, they think that they're doing something in the hood, and you know, they're not able to travel and have all the benefits, man. But you're getting both. I mean, you're getting the benefits, you know, getting paid, you traveling, you know, having a good time, and you're getting education at the same time, man. So I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
So would you say more or less being in the military, having that status, gave you kind of like, you know, the women like look to try to hook up with a military man, or would you say that you know, having its advantages, or would you say more or less were there a lot of also females in the military looking to hook up with other guys in the military?
Well, there's two answers to that. For one, it depends on the woman, because some women are looking for a way out. Others, they're securing themselves. Like when I was in Memphis, Millington, Tennessee, which is right outside of Memphis. That was the first A school, and there was a girl that I was dating when I was there. And I just remember 2 weeks before, I made the mistake. I made the mistake of telling her how long I was going to be there. This is when I'm here for school and I graduate on this day.
Yeah.
2 weeks before I graduated, she just kind of went cold on me. And, you know, I need an answer. So I would go over to her apartment, and a lot of times she wouldn't be there in this 2 weeks. So I'm talking to her roommate, and her roommate filled me in that she had met a guy that was in the Air Force, and he had went away. So she was kind of cutting me loose before I cut her loose, because she knew the time was coming. But then on graduation day, she came to my graduation. So it was really weird.
Yeah, because when I think about that, when I you know, for that question, I was thinking like officer and gentleman. You know, when the women like, oh, you know, this guy's gonna be officer, I can marry this officer. Because I know even when I lived on base, women like, you know, you're not supposed to fraternize with enlisted men's wives, but like a lot of women trying to go up. You want to, you know, officer because you got more money, you know, more status. I'm an officer's wife, you know, this and that. So it's a lot of that too. You know, social class within the military.
Yeah, it's almost like to me it reminded me of Jim Crow, because there were signs on base that said officers housing, no one listed allowed.
Yeah.
So it couldn't go over there.
Officers club.
Yeah. Even on the ship, there's so many different areas where it's officers and enlisted, and it's almost like you can't even look them in the eye. You salute and keep it moving.
Well, I remember, you know, when I played Little League baseball on base, and like the officer's kid, you know, by default, his kid might have been a nerd, but he had to play. You don't want, you know, before the game's over, you put him in somewhere left, right field, because the officer's sitting in there watching, like, you know, my son ain't on the field, you know, what's going on? And so it was always that type of power. And I seen that dynamic young. I didn't understand it fully, but I'm like, okay, this guy, he's no joke, you know. He's got a lot more rank than these guys who are just, you know, enlisted.
Yeah, there is that, and like I said, it all depends because I remember before I even left for boot camp, my recruiter, like all the recruiters, they started joking once you sign because they're real nice to you before you sign, and then once you sign, now they start treating you like one of the boys. And so there was a lot of times where they would joke with me and say, hey, you're gonna get to Memphis and get married. You're gonna get to Memphis and get married. Don't get married. Them girls, they're looking for somebody. They're trying to hook up. So in my head, I had it in my mind that I was not going to connect, solid with anybody while I was there. Plus, I was only going to be there for 6 months, and there was a whole lot more living to do. But yes, there were a lot of guys that got married when we were in A school.
That quick?
Yeah, those are usually the guys that probably grew up on a farm or just in the
never
middle
been
of nowhere.
exposed like that.
Yeah, so because I'm from LA.
Yeah,
born in LA, Long Beach, raised in South Central. So running up and down Crenshaw every weekend.
Yeah, you seen it.
And then Venice Beach, so that I was different. And then, like I said, after I joined, I was 20. I went to boot camp right after my 21st birthday, so I had a little bit more experience than most of the guys.
So, what would you say with one of the hottest females you hooked up with while you're in the Navy? I know there's some. I know I've heard stories. My buddy was telling me about. He had an Amazon. 6 foot son. I'm like, God, an Amazon.
The one that stands out that I can think about, because there were so many of them, but there was one that I that I had. This reminds me of some of the stories that I remember Humble's talking about. But there was this girl, and I cannot remember her name because it was so long ago. I only did 6.5 years, but she was on I think the Gompers. She was on one of the ships, and I met her at the base exchange. We ended up hooking up, and we're spending some time together. And then that's when I had to go to Norfolk, Virginia. I had to go there for 3 months. When I came back, she found somebody else, and she was in love with that guy. And I hated it. I used to always think, what could I have done to where, well, nothing. When you leave, you leave. And if that person still wants to, if they want to wait for you, they will. If not, they don't.
Well, like you said earlier, though, I mean, a lot of these women that are married, when their men leave, I mean, shoot, Humboldt was saying, like, the base club would be popping.
Man, at least at Alameda, when you drove in the gate, there was 2 gates, a front gate and a back gate. We always drove in the back gate because it was closer to the barracks. When you come in the back gate, the base is right there. So when you come, I think it was Friday night was the night that base was, or that club was open on base for enlisted, and you knew when a ship was gone because the parking lot would be packed. You're like, oh, okay, there must be one of the carriers must be out of town. So, but yeah, because you're making me think. You reminded me of another time. There was this girl, can't remember her name, sorry, but I know she was from Atlanta, and her boyfriend was from Atlanta. I met her boyfriend, just hanging out on a base, you meet guys, and then maybe probably a month after, just seeing him and interacting with him, his girl joined the Navy, and she comes to that base, and while he's introducing her to people and he's cool, she's looking at me, she's giving me this look like, okay, that's interesting. But you know how when somebody might might be throwing you a little action. So their ship went out for like for like some maneuvers. It may have been 2 weeks or a month or whatever. It wasn't that long. I just remember her telling me that the ship was going out and then it was coming back for like 2 weeks, and then that ship was doing a home port change because I guess they were starting to scale down and close the base. So we ended up hooking up. We hooked up. Some of these stories, man, I'm ashamed to tell them, but I'm telling them anyway because that's history. It's not me now.
I mean, she be young. We do a lot. I got some crazy stories. Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up connecting with her, and same story. I connected with her. We ended up messing around. Then their ship came back, and we had ended up going, like a bunch of us went bowling. And so now it's him and her. She's staring at me, and I'm looking at her like,
making it obvious.
It's like, what are you doing? But I can't say nothing to her. So, just trying to look away or whatever. Their ship leaves. We connected, and we were pretty tight for a while. But she wasn't the only one that I was messing with. So we had to do, it was called Colonel Blitz. It's like a mock war that they do for 2 weeks off the coast of San Diego. So I had to go away for 2 weeks. Before I left, I forgot that I'd messed with this other girl the day before her because I'm leaving the next morning. And the one that I was a little kind of tight with, she came to my room. She wanted to see me before I left. So I made the mistake of taking my shirt off. I had a big old hickey right here. She didn't like that. So I leave the next morning. I come back 2 weeks later, and I kind of shared this story. But I come back 2 weeks later, and she's with somebody else right now. And it's kind of like, okay, she chose somebody else, moving on. But I hadn't really seen her with anybody. And then one night I'm on watch. And you either have watch when you're in aviation, where you're watching the flight line and the aircraft, or you're in the barracks, standing guard or doing watch. And sometimes you just walk away from the desk. And so I walk through the barracks rooms, and I go to the parking lot. And I remember she was there with traffic control, so she worked at night. And I remember coming out, and I'm looking at the parking lot, and I see her car roll in. And this is like, because my watch was from 11 at night till 7 in the morning. I see her car roll in. I'm like, oh, okay, here she comes. This dude gets out the car, and I knew him because we all kind of hang out. So he comes walking up. He didn't even see me until he got coming up the stairs to come to the door, and and then he just looked down and walked by me, didn't say nothing. And in my head, I didn't say nothing to him either, but in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, that's who she's messing with now.
Yeah.
All right.
He rolling her car now.
Yeah.
Did you have any deployment overseas?
No, that's the one thing I didn't do the whole time I was in. The first platform I was on was helicopters that were a little too big for aircraft carriers.
Okay.
So we went on an LPH, which is the aircraft carrier that it's just helicopters and at that time Harriers, which are the aircraft that can take off.
Oh, yeah, to hook you straight up?
Yeah.
Now, a friend of mine was telling me about some stories on the aircraft carriers, and he was saying a buddy of his is in charge of going around trying to catch people having sex on the aircraft carrier as far as his job. But he said what he would do is he would, for $100, let you go ahead and do your thing. So he said he was up in there balling by giving people passes to go ahead and do their thing without writing them up. Yeah,
there were all kinds of hustles. I never went on a carrier like overseas. Well, they call it a pack, like a West Pack or a Med Pack. It's minimum 6 months, 6 to 8 months you're out, unless some conflict happens, and then you have to your ship will go take care of that, and you're just on board. But I heard stories.
A lot of cheap busting on them ships?
Yeah, some of those females, they would when the ship came back in, they'd go and buy like BMWs or Jaguar, nice luxury cars, brand new cash, because they were out there selling.
Oh shit!
They was out there selling bullets.
Slaying that coochie, huh?
Yeah, and I remember I asked, like, how do they even do that? Because typically you're in what we call dungarees, which is, we call them prison shirt and bell-bottom jeans.
Yeah.
They don't have that uniform anymore. But it's like, well, you could either wear that or you had like coveralls, and the coveralls would zip all the way down and then almost under the crotch.
Yeah.
So some of those females, they just have nothing on underneath. When they're gonna hook up with a guy, they would just zip it down.
So
bend over.
Are you like rush type thing, or do you have like, because there's a lot of private areas, or no, or?
I didn't get those details, but
okay.
I'm 99% sure it's up to you. I mean, like if it's in an area where people are going to pass by, then you're probably trying to rush. But then there's other areas where like nobody's going to be in there, like the anchor room, which is the forecastle.
Like a little cubby hole, you can get in there and do your thing and keep it pushing.
Yeah. Or sometimes like I know the fantail, which is in the back of the ship, depending on like on an aircraft carrier, and maybe on other ships, but on a carrier, it's like when you're out to sea, it's pitch black, and it's lights out. You don't have regular lights. All the lights are red after a certain time, so it's like you can still see when you're on the ship or in the ship, but if you're off the ship, you can't see. And an aircraft carrier, they keep a 200-mile radius. Well, back then, a 200-mile radius of protection, basically, where nothing violates that. They have submarines under the ship, surface ships to protect, and surface ships and then aircraft flying overhead, and their job is to protect the aircraft carrier. Nothing gets close to it. If submarines and ships, surface ships, they're holding it down. If an aircraft violates 200 miles, then they would launch one of our aircraft to let it know you're too close, you need to back away. If they violated 150, they would shoot it down, because back then they had a missile. It's called an Exocet missile. it could sink a aircraft carrier from 100 miles away.
Damn.
So that's why they kept that radius
Yeah.
from it. But at night, it's lights out, so you can't see anything.
Oh wow, so it's like a bit stealth.
Pretty much, because like on out on the water, you can see a candle from like 10 miles away. I think it is like or like a cigarette. When you light a lighter for a cigarette, you light a cigarette.
That reflects
you can
that
see,
much, huh?
yeah, because it's pitch black out
Yeah.
there, so you can see light. The smallest amount of light, you can see that from a long distance. So they'd be on the fantail doing what they're doing, and you can't even see them. And the person might be standing right next to you, and you can't even see them.
Oh, cause that's right. Cause you're thinking like in the regular like streets, you got street lights, but out there is nothing, pitch black, and way out in the middle of nowhere.
Pitch black. And the only thing, like if you're on the carrier deck, because I've seen like you get some of this information in training, even though you may not go out to sea, you get what you're supposed to do on the ship, how you're supposed to operate and whatnot, and then you see certain like videos for training and whatnot. And on the ship, like this lights out. The planes, like as they're landing, they'll have certain lights on, but you can't see those if you're like enemy or on another ship.
Okay.
You can't really see what's going on unless you're on the ship, because some of it is like glow in the dark, but it's only glow in the dark for certain light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so basically it's non-detectable to somebody trying to see from a distance. You couldn't really detect it, but the person flying in would know basically how to come and land and do whatever they need to do.
Yeah, they can see, because it's hard to explain, but it's just like almost like infrared.
Okay.
But it's not, because it's just the way it reflects light. It reflects certain light. So there's certain videos I can send you some where you'll see like an aircraft, and you'll see like little strips on certain parts, like on the tips of the wings and the tips of the stabilizers and the ailerons, just certain parts of the aircraft where that's lit, so you can see the aircraft and you can see kind of an outline of it.
So with your job title, working in aviation, did that kind of, was that more of a coveted position where you got to have access to, more females? Because I know another guy, he told me he was in the medical industry, and having worked in like X-ray and MRI, there was a lot of females, and he said when the new ones would come through to them nurses, man, he said they'd be busting their cheeks.
Yeah, I was an aviation electrician. And so being an electrician versus an airframer, sometimes we had females in our shop they were electricians as well. Whether you won't have like female airframers or engine mechanics, you might have some, but that's not the job that females will usually choose. So yeah, they had access to females a little bit more often. Yeah, and that's another thing too. Sometimes civilian, sometimes military. You start asking, like with anything, hey, what do you do? What do you do? So I remember that one time I was in Norfolk, and this girl, she came with somebody else, and so she's like, oh, all you guys are Navy? Like, yeah, we are. It's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm an aviation electrician. What is that? I work on airplanes. If it goes in the air and it has wires, then I deal with that. And this other guy, I forget what the title was, but he dealt with radar or something like that. But shipboard radar is different from aviation radar, just the way they deal with it. So he did that, and I remember my other buddy, who we actually went to high school together, and he's the reason why I actually joined the Navy. And that's a whole nother story I'll get to if you want to hear it. But I remember him saying, because he was a cook, he's like, well, I work in the galley, but which is it is what it is. But
yeah.
So she's looking more at us because we do, like, and I guess in her
technical
eyes, he's
or
a
more
cook. Yeah, and then we were kind of like that as well. Kind of just like, what do you do? Oh, you work on, like there were guys that worked on nuclear propulsion, so they were kind of like, to some of us, like that was like the upper echelon, because you got like a bonus. I think they got like a $30,000 bonus when they joined, and
plus after you get out, I mean those jobs right there. I mean, shoot, you going into defense, I mean you're making bank.
Yeah,
you're making,
So, but that the job that you can qualify for, well, when you join, you take a test. It's called the ASVAB test, and the higher your score is, the more jobs that you have opportunities. Like I scored high enough to be aviation electrician, but not an I worked on electronics, but actually it's an electronics technician, because electrician, you worked on wires. Electronics technician, you worked on radar. And I guess it took more math, so I didn't score high enough. But then above that was the guys, we called them nukes. And if you worked on nuclear propulsion. And so sometimes when you're talking to each other, it's like, what do you do? Oh, that guy's an admin. You push paper. What do you do? I work on aircraft. Well, what do you do on aircraft? I work on engines. Engine mech. Electronics technician. Oh, you work on radar. So it's kind of like you equate it to
so there's like different levels to the game. Yeah.
Like, okay, that guy's smart. Oh, he's a nuke. Damn, that dude must be a brainiac. Kind of like when you're in high school, you see the guys that had AP classes, and you kind of look up to him a little bit.
Trigonometry or calculus, or this guy's like, yeah, he's smart.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it was with us and with military people and civilians. We both kind of looked at it like that.
Would you say, being in the Navy, that it was a little bit more, because is it scholastically related? I don't know the actual term to use for it, as compared to the education you get in some of the other branches, or what would you say would be the difference, like say Navy or Air Force or Army, or as far as, or it just depends on, you can get the same education in all the branches as far as job skills or training, or?
Kind of, because I know like everybody they kind of look at the Marines as the bottom. Because Marines, they're trained, like I remember the Marines are Department of the Navy. So when I was in A school, we had Marines in our class. They trained with us. And I remember one of the instructors, he was during the first week, he's like, okay, as you guys are learning things, once you get out to the fleet, if you're a sailor or Airedale or whatever they want to call us, if you're in the Navy and something breaks out, some kind of crisis or whatever, you keep working. You have your multimeter, you just keep working. But if you're a Marine, you're a Marine first. So you drop your multimeter, go grab your M16 and head to take care of whatever it is. Yeah. But that takes a special kind of person that, like when the bullets are coming this way and you gotta go that way, like the infantry guys or whatever. Aviation guys, Marines, they trained with us, they worked with us, but at the snap of a finger, they might have to become an infantry guy because they're Marines first. Air Force, they're kind of a little bit more technical. Army, it is what it is. I mean, you can't be a dummy and do any of this stuff. You have to, well, now I got to rephrase that, because like if you're infantry, bullets are going this way, you go that way, kill whoever's in front of you. Seems like that's what the training was. But for others of us, I'll tell you this, I learned pretty quickly that from E1 to E3, every 6 months you just got a promotion. But once it was now testing for E4, which in the Navy is petty officer, you take I forget what the name of it was, but you take a test every 6 months. And if you score high enough and your evaluations are good enough, then you would get promoted to the next level. Like
well, because I know,
E5.
like even like in the Coast Guard, you got petty officer, and then you have like where you got first class, and then you get what chief, master chief.
Yeah.
As you work your way up as enlisted, depending on taking the tests and stuff, right?
Right, and that's the thing is how smart you are determines how far you go. Because I learned it in A school. It was like after the first week, maybe the second week, if your scores if you weren't basically a B, they just went by numbers. So like 100 to 90 is an A. 90 to 80 is a B. If your scores on the test, your average was less than 80, you had curfew. You had to be in at, I think it was 9 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
But if your scores were high enough, then you went and did whatever the heck you wanted to do, as long as you were at muster in the morning to go to school, because that was your job. Monday through Friday, 7 or 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. we were in school.
So being a single man in the Navy then, man, it seemed like it had a lot of benefits. I mean, would you say that, a lot of guys who married early kind of sold themselves short, or would you say, because it sounded like you were having a good time, man. I mean, I didn't get married till my 30s. So.
If you married the right girl and she was, committed to you, then you made a good choice. But most of them, you're too young, man.
Well, I'm just looking at the fact, like, you have a lot of men and you have a lot of attention. So these women, of course, women like attention. And, you know, if your man's gone here and there and you got somebody who got mouthpiece and he's also, you know, pretty intelligent, then you might let him, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, some military, they would get married just so that they could move off base and because you got extra money.
Oh, okay.
Like you had
base housing. That's right. You got a supplement for outside housing.
Well, that's the thing. If you had your base pay, and then you had extra pays like hazardous duty pay, or if you had a meal card, so you go eat in the galley. Mm-hmm. But if you turned in your meal card, at that time you got an extra $200. So now you could buy groceries, or you had more money to eat somewhere else. But if you went to the galley, you had to pay versus just showing your meal card.
Okay, gotcha.
If you were married, then you got, I forgot what it was called, but you got money. If you were in base housing, you didn't get that extra money. But if you got an apartment, then you would get that extra money.
Yeah, because then they give you like a housing allowance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was called, but there were some people that would get married just so that they didn't have to live in the barracks anymore. I was like, man, you that desperate to just not live in the barracks? This ain't that bad. But
yeah.
Some guys would do that, and then you had other guys that would just
it's straight players.
Yeah, I mean, you did what you did. I mean, I'll be honest. The whole time that I was out there, I was looking for a woman that would just be mine, but it didn't happen. I was always accused of having somebody else. I don't know if it's because I had green eyes or I was light skinned. I don't know what the situation was, but
so you got that label.
Yeah, every time the pretty boy, pretty boy player label, where that's not what I was trying to be, but you know.
Yeah, kind of fell into by default.
Yeah.
Oh man, hey, military stories, Big Herc 916, my man Ty. Make sure you guys subscribe, share the channel. Stop walking around with a crusty butt, smelly ball sack, and a funky hoo-ha. Big Herc said, wash that ass. Pick you up a t-shirt at freshoutseries.com.